Hello viewers, welcome to a very sunny Portugal. I'm here to ride this, the brand new Specialized Roubaix SL8, the new endurance bike launched yesterday. I've done a nice deep tech dive on the bike already, link down below in case you missed that. But today we're going to see if all the changes actually make any difference when it comes to riding. It's sunny today, but it wasn't yesterday. It was very, very wet indeed. So I've had a good 2 days of riding a bike. Not a super in-depth review, but a good taste of what this new bike is all about and whether the changes are enough to make this the endurance bike to buy right now. So without further ado, let's dive in. The riding here in Portugal is fabulous. I love it here. I've been here a few times and the road riding is supreme. Nice roads, get up into the hills, away from the traffic. Road quality is pretty good, but there are some rough patches and some holes and cracks. So a bike with the big tyres, the geometry and the future shock should give me extra comfort. And straight away, well, it feels very familiar, which is no surprise really given the changes are fairly subtle. The geometry is largely the same, which is to say it's very good. Higher front end, a bit slacker, a bit longer. I last rode a Roubaix back in 2019, 2020, so it's been a few years, but still one of my favourite endurance bikes if comfort is your main focus. The future shock, which some people might call a gimmick, really does work well and delivers more comfort through the handlebars than any other bike in this category. Loads of scooters here. I'm glad you can now service it at home as well, and you can tune the way it rides with different spring rates and preload spaces as well, which you could do on Gen 1. They lost that ability in Gen 2 with the move to damping, but now Gen 3 we have damping. You have the dial on the top for open and locked out and 5 steps in between, and you can tune the spring rate. I've got the medium spring rate in. I could probably go to a lighter spring. It does feel quite firm, a bit firmer than the old version. That's my Wahoo telling me we're about to start climbing again. And I love the fact we have space for a 40mm wide tyre, which is just massive. Bigger than a Trek Domani, which is 38 and was the class leader for quite a while until now, being beaten by the new Roubaix. And bigger than some aero gravel bikes as well. So it does open up the possibility to do some kind of dirt, light gravel, Belgian waffle ride, UCI gravel champs, that sort of riding. So although it's not a gravel bike, I do think we'll see it being used at some kind of light gravel events with a fatter tyre. Race bikes like the Tarmac SL8 are definitely getting better and smoother and offering more comfort than ever before. But this bike is still way smoother. With 32mm wide tyres at low pressures and the future shock and the bendy seat post, the comfort is just insane and so much better than a Tarmac, as good as that bike is. This coastline here in Portugal is absolutely stunning. Amazing coastline, the waves look stunning. If you're into surfing, this is the place to come. Look at that. But I'm going to stick to the Tarmac today, more my cup of tea. Hey! Supporters of the channel, clearly.
The appalling weather on the first day really showcased just how good endurance bikes like the new Roubaix are. Despite riding on some very slick roads with occasional mud, the bike was sure-footed and calm at all times. This all-weather ability is where it really impresses. I was also very impressed with the tyres on the bike. Through the pouring rain, in the bends and corners, they offered high levels of grip and traction and never felt like they might slip out at all. Very confidence inspiring indeed. And our group suffered no punches either, which was equally impressive. Some mud guards would have been just lovely though, which this new bike does accommodate. The geometry is tried and tested, more relaxed than a race bike like a Tarmac, which does suit most riders in my opinion better than a race bike. You can actually reach the drops and use them more frequently than a slammed race bike with no stress on your neck or back. And even cruising along on the hoods, the fit is not cramped at all. The roads in Portugal are mostly smooth, but we did find some cobbles, and while they won't compare with the ones in northern France, they did give us an insight into how the bike offers good comfort on crappy road surfaces. The future shock is uncanny in how it filters out all the vibrations through the handlebar. In a softer setting, it's really plush, and even in the firm setting, it will still blow through on a big pothole or crack in the road.
This new version does feel a bit firmer though. We can tune it with 3 different springs and preload spacers. I like the fact you can turn it off or adjust it somewhere between open and locked out. But to be honest, after riding the bike for 2 days, as I did with the old Roubaix, I just leave it open all the time because I'm not really losing much when I'm riding on smooth roads or climbing or sprinting by having it open. So there's no real efficiency loss or anything like that, but you can lock out if you prefer. I'm still not really a fan of the hover handlebar. I like the relaxed geometry of the bike, of course, but I would take a normal handlebar, just get the front end a little bit lower and a bit closer to the tarmac. It's interesting that Specialized didn't try and make the Roubaix even racier, like more aero, and take some of the tarmac influence into the bike. And it doesn't feel as fast as the Canyon Enduro I reviewed recently, which has an aero handlebar and deep section wheels. We have a normal round handlebar here, which I really like, and shallow wheels. So it doesn't feel as fast, but it arguably makes more sense for the cyclist buying this sort of bike. Outright speed isn't the main focus of this bike. Comfort and being practical, more important considerations really, because the limitation of the future shock is you can't go fully internal with the cable routing. But I don't think that's really a bad thing. Yes, internal cable routing might be more aero on an aero race bike, but this sort of bike, you probably don't need it. So Roubaix is a bike designed for going a long way, and this is Jack who takes going a long way to another level. So you're riding the Roubaix, the perfect bike for your adventures?
Yeah, I love the Roubaix. I've been lucky enough to try Tarmac, Athos and Roubaix. And Roubaix is my bike of choice because it allows me to go longer day after day in comfort. So it ticks all the boxes in my eyes.
What's the biggest challenge you've ever done? The longest ride you've ever done?
Wow, the longest ride, like I've ridden over 1,000 kilometers non-stop.
1,000 kilometers non-stop?
The hardest thing was 2022, 52 Everests, 52 climbs and 1,000,000 meters of elevation. And it was a matter of keeping myself in good stead to ride day after day after day. And while the Athos was a great bike for climbing, I actually did most of it on the Roubaix because of the comfort factor and the ability to back up the big days day after day.
So is the comfort a bigger priority for you than like aero and outright speed?
Comfort's definitely the priority, but I think the best thing about this bike is you don't sacrifice the speed. You're not really making those sacrifices. And I think it's a great all-rounder.
Any tips for a normal cyclist like me to kind of ride a longer distance I'm used to?
I think the biggest thing comes down to your eating. So making sure you stay well fueled. A good analogy is the fuel in the car. So if you're not putting petrol in the car's not running. So think of the body as the same thing. Put the fuel in and your body will keep running.
Yeah. Good advice there, Jack.
No worries.
We'll have a climb coming up, so better hunker down. The downside to the Future Shock is it does keep the weight of the bike higher than other endurance bikes. There's no getting away from the mass of it. And they are saying 7.3 kilos claim weight for a SRAM Red top level bike. I'm on a SRAM Rival access bike and it's probably about 8.5 kilos. I haven't got some scales, but if I find some, I'll flash the weight up on the screen now. But it's not a heavy bike and the comfort benefits probably outweigh the slightly higher weight of the bike. So has the new Roubaix SL8 done enough to retain its position, quite wahoo, its position at the top of the endurance bike category? Because I do think it's one of the best endurance bikes if you value comfort over all other metrics. Well, yes, I think the wide tyre clearance is probably the most fundamental change to a bike that we'll see it becomes very popular over the next few years. And where I see a bike doing really well is appealing to people who right now are buying a gravel bike and fitting a fat slick tyre too. That's really popular. I see lots of you doing that. So here's a bike that is arguably a better fit for that customer, cyclist who are buying gravel bikes, but not actually using them for gravel adventure, but using them for road riding, and they want the big tyres for comfort, traction and control. And it's a bike that further blurs the lines between road, endurance, or road, gravel, adventure, whatever you want to call these niches. But that's great. It gives you and I the option to fit the tyres we want, spec the bike how you want it. I like the fitted 32mm wide tyres from the box. Good tyre, really grippy, loads of comfort and tubeless as well. But to go wider, have the ability to go much wider, the really exciting move on a bike, and you go to 35 with mud guards. So for UK riding, we now have a really good solid option for year-round riding, where the bike didn't really hit the mark, limited to a 33 with no mudguard mounts, can't really miss the mark. But finally, Specialized have addressed the failings with that old bike and made it one of the most interesting, exciting endurance bikes currently available. And there we go then, my very first ride on a brand new bike. But 2 days of riding on unfamiliar roads isn't enough for a very in-depth review. So I'll reserve my final judgment on the new bike until I get one back in the UK and ride it on more familiar roads, hopefully over the next few weeks. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. But first impressions are good. They clearly built on the foundation of the excellent predecessor of the bike, which is a bike I really liked, with some nice features. But the new bike has some nice improvements. They haven't really chased aero or weight just for the sake of it, but the updated future shock is a good thing to see. I like the fact you now service it and tune it and adapt it more easily. And space with 40mm wide tyres is just a no-brainer. And mudguard mounts, thank you very much Specialized. You finally listened to my request for mudguard mounts on an endurance bike. Anyway, if you want to see a more detailed tech conversation with Specialized about the bike, do watch the video up here. And of course, don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button down here. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.